Now, you are working in casualty. You got the ABG report, arterial blood gases analysis report. In that you are going to interpret what is the patient suffering from. Let us see how you will approach the problem. First, look for the pH, which will be available in your ABG report. The moment you become house surgeon, first day only you learn how to take a ABG instead of a VBG. I mean, when you suck the blood, it can come from vein and or artery, but what we are interested is about artery, ABG. Based on the color, you can differentiate. pH less than 7.35 is acidosis, more than 7.45 is alkalosis. Now, look whether bicarbonate level has changed. If the bicarbonate is primarily changed, then it becomes metabolic. That means a low bicarbonate makes it a metabolic acidosis, a high bicarbonate makes it a metabolic alkalosis. First check whether how is the bicarbonate level. Primarily, if the bicarbonate itself is changed, it means it is metabolic problem. Now, if there is acidosis and the bicarbonate is decreased, it means it is metabolic acidosis. I mean, if the pH is of the acidotic range and also same time bicarbonate is also low, then you basically call it as metabolic acidosis. For that you need to know first of all, what is normal bicarbonate concentration? 22 to 30 milliequivalents per liter. Easy to remember is 25 is the golden figure, which you remember is bicarbonate. Suppose if the change in the bicarbonate is opposite to the change with the pH. Suppose if there is acidosis, if there is an acidosis and same time patient's bicarbonate instead of being low, if it is increased instead of 30, if it is 35, so the pH is acidotic. What does it mean? Primary problem is not metabolic. Whatever the change in bicarbonate is mainly a compensatory phenomena. You are able to get me? So that's how first you decide acidosis is there or not. Then you decide whether it is primarily metabolic. How will you know? Acidosis with a low bicarbonate. Second, you decide whether this acidosis is there and whether there is any compensatory metabolic process. Then bicarbonate instead of being low, it will be high or normal. High or normal. Okay. Then you call it as a compensatory metabolic. That means what is the primary process there? Which is abnormal process leading to acidosis? Respiratory process. And after all, kidney is only retaining the bicarbonate and making it either normal or high instead of low. So then that is primarily respiratory problem and there is a compensatory bicarbonate retention. That's what you will understand. Okay, doc? Then second, you look at the carbon dioxide. If the primary change is there in the carbon dioxide, then you call it as respiratory problem. First you must know what is a normal PCO2. 35 to 45 milliequivalents millimeters mercury. Easy thing is remember 40. 40, 60 are the golden numbers. Why? Any PCO2 more than 40 is hypercarbia. Any PO2 less than 60 is hypoxia. Don't tell anything less than 80 is hypoxia. No. You take one of your classmates who smokes regularly and get his PO2 done. It will be only 65, 70. So that is the reason PO2 ke liye what is the benchmark? To call hypoxia less than 60. Hypercarbia bolne ke liye kitna? Above 40. If you still don't have energy to remember this, easier is put a benchmark 50 for both of them. अगर CO2 50 से ऊपर है या ऑक्सीजन 50 से नीचे है, दोनों abnormal बन जाएगा. I mean whatever it is, working rule. In our days, in one night duty, while we were as a postgraduate in Nizam's Institute of Medical Sciences, in one night duty we used to have about 8 to 12 acidosis patients. We used to take like a mercenary killer, ABG from everybody, and finally we decided, chalo ye process acha nahi lagega. Teach the ward boy how to interpret ABG. क्यों? Suppose if you take 10 ABGs, only one will suffer acidosis. 9 are normal. That means ward boy need not run to bring the report. Only for one person he need to bring. Sometimes all ABGs, none of them may show acidosis. In that scenario, asking a ward boy to go running and coming is unreasonable in the midnight. Because our ABG machine used to be a different place, casualty used to be a different place. The ward boy in the middle of the night while carrying ABG suddenly get a natural call. He may go for an emergency coitus and then slowly pick up the report, have a cup of tea and then come back. So why to disturb his nocturnal urgencies with unnecessary emergency? So isliye what did we teach? I still remember our ward boy Jahangir, we used to tell, Dekho Jahangir, what is the important value you remember? Sir, 7.3, I will remember. Achha, very good. 7.3 ke niche pH ka value hai to no emergency coitus, selective only. You come running. Second, what is emergency? Potassium ka value kitna? Sir, above 6. Very good. So we taught him 3 values. If 3 values used to be there, he used to go running like a baseball players will be running, no, from one pole to other. He used to go running like that. So that's the most important thing, doctor. Acid-base disturbances, dyselectrolytemias, managing them is all about intensive care management. And it's very easy to manage. What is required to manage? थोड़ा bicarbonate push करो, acidosis कम हो जाएगा. If it is metabolic, थोड़ा ventilator को लगाओ, respiratory acidosis है तो set हो जाएगा. If it is respiratory alkalosis, a closed bag लगाओ mouth को, he will expire CO2 and inhale it back. So, hysterical patients, anxiety come with respiratory alkalosis with tetany. What is the treatment, doc? Closed bag ventilation. Because they are exhaling in anxiety, hyperventilation, excess CO2 which is volatile acid. Catch it and push it back by putting a closed bag ventilation. Then if it is metabolic alkalosis, एक saline bottle लगाओ. Do you need any wonder drugs to treat? But if you don't recognize, they will kill the patient. That's a whole story. Now, if the primary change is CO2, then you call it as respiratory. For that you should know 35 to 45 is normal PCO2. Okay, doc. Suppose if the change of the pH is commensurate with the change in pH, इसका मतलब क्या है? Suppose pH is showing alkalotic pH, doc, 7.5. What do you expect CO2 to be? Low or high? If it is primarily respiratory problem, low. So if the change in CO2 is commensurate with the change in pH, that is if the alkalosis is there and a reduced CO2 is there, then you call it as primarily respiratory. Suppose if there is alkalosis but CO2 is, instead of being low, if it is normal or raised, then what is it? Then compensatory respiratory it is. Okay, so that is how you will basically conclude. So summarize, doctor. Always look for pH. pH is acidotic, bicarbonate is low. Primarily, what is the answer? Metabolic. pH is low, bicarbonate is normal or increased, then it is primarily respiratory, and metabolic compensation is there by the kidney. pH is low, PCO2 is high. Then primarily it is a respiratory, or otherwise pH is high, PCO2 is low. That means it is primarily respiratory. Instead of that, if the pH is low but PCO2 is normal or low, then it is primarily metabolic and respiratory is only a compensation. Bas, just you must decide who is primary, who is secondary, whether compensation is full or not. And let us assume you are working in a PHC. You don't have ABG machine, you don't have Jahangir, you don't have a ward boy to run. Still clinically how will you diagnose? Patient is hyperventilating with an underlying metabolic problem, that means he is having acidosis. Patient is anxious, hyperventilating, then the problem is respiratory alkalosis. If the patient is gasping to breathe, about to die, the problem is respiratory acidosis. When there is a low respiratory rate, we can't expel the CO2. CO2 accumulates in the body and that leads to acidosis, which is respiratory. Patient is dehydrated and you expect metabolic alkalosis, for which treatment is saline, is what need to be fundamentally remembered. So summarize, pH is 7.35 to 7.45, the pH of the patient is 7.46, which is increased, then you call it as alkalosis. Second, you look for CO2, if the change is towards acidosis or alkalosis, etc., etc. So today only you go back, doctor, just read acid base disturbances. What else will be given in the textbook? For every unit of pH, how much of bicarb and CO2 changes will be there, everything I leave as a homework for you, because once we initiate, you know very well how to read and explode on the topic. Now, quickly I will walk into the remaining part of our discussion, doctor. That would be starting with nephrolithiasis. Today, hook or by crook, we are going to finish nephrology. I am bored with kidney and the kidney diseases. We will start from tomorrow a fresh hematology, which is going to be the next thing. After hematology, we will once more take up dyselectrolytemias, acid-base disturbances as a topic. All hyper of the potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, along with once more acid-base disturbances that will take care of the things. So I think you remember, we started with cardiology, finished pulmonology, rheumatology, endocrinology, neurology. Now with, very good doctor, for 1,000 rupees paid, we are doing lot of justification. At least teacher is getting good revision. So not bad. Yeah. Now let us make a start.